Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Ellen's an introvert, though, and it's really funny because she's happy. She's like, everything's canceled. I don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah. Maria's kind of been training her whole life for this, too.
That's exactly what Ellen said. She's like, I'm so happy.
My brother and I kid that my dad, this was, this would be heyday for him also. And my brother Steve, too, he digs his at-home alone time.
Yeah. Things any different for you, John?
Not that I noticed, other than I have a couple of house guests I want to throw over the balcony. One of them is out of reach, fortunately, but the other one, I just don't really have a need for a gay houseboy.
And that's about as far as George has come so far?
Actually, oh, come on, John. You've always wanted a gay houseboy.
Busted.
All I got was daughters.
But God turned around and brought you two of them, and they're staying with you.
I've noticed that, actually.
He listens to all of your prayers. Don't you worry.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, he has a wry sense of humor when he answers them. I want you to understand this.
What are you saying?
I think you're getting some of your own medicine here, John. That's what I think.
Hey, Paul, have I shown you how I adjust my glasses?
No, I never noticed that.
I think it's probably more uncomfortable for them than it is for me, actually.
I bet.
Sure.
Ken's like, I know, I've been.
Yeah, I bet. No doubt. I don't know what it's like for you, but I know what it's like.
This way, I really don't give a shit other than the fact of, okay, can I figure out a way to tell these little fuckers something they need to know, or do I actually have to put them on the street before they hear me? I mean, that's the question in my mind at this point. It's like,
right.
How hard are you going to be? How hard are you going to push on?
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck. It's a worldwide, Paul, think about it. It's a worldwide frickin' pandemic. And they're sitting there saying, you can't talk to me. I don't need anybody. I can go by myself. I'm gay. It's like, well, fucking heck. Go show me. Well, I don't want to go out in the pandemic. Well, what the fuck do you want then? You don't want to.
I know, right?
So, pandemic, here we come. If you do a little song and dance with it, a little Judy Garland action, it'd be great. A little better.
I hear TikTok's good for those kinds of things.
Yeah. Here we go on the way to downtown. Hi, downtown. Here we are.
Yep.
Wow, this is very romantic for the romantic zone. I'll tell you that. Mexican village to me.
I guess you're getting our update of the day.
We were on a 3-hour call with them earlier, Paul.
Oh, I see. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why they're not on.
They've had enough for today.
Well, I don't know if they've had enough or not, but that's here we go. I mean, they're resistant. What can I tell you?
They seem to like second helpings, though.
They're not the first. It was the last.
Second helpings of what?
Getting beat up over the head. They keep coming back to get beat up again.
Well, that's the thing, is they're not really being beaten up. What they're doing is they're beating themselves up, and they're, it's really, they're drama queens, really. Elise, you should understand this. Terry, you should understand this.
I do.
Well, don't be so judgmental. It was good.
I'm not. Yeah, I understand. I do.
Yeah, everybody goes through this somewhat. I don't know why I never went through it like this. I think it's because I went through it way earlier in my life. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Well,
there does seem to be built-in resistance, no matter what the practicality of what's being dangled in front of us, them.
But
Well,
practicality doesn't have anything to do with believing what's real. Most of it, I found.
say it again. Practicality doesn't have anything to do with.
If somebody doesn't believe that practicality is a real thing, it's really difficult, I think, for them to ever test anything other than what they believe is real. And for instance, like for both George and Jesse, a lot of what they learned, let's say, in life was because of how mom saw things. Because mom had to protect Jesse, had to spend time with Jesse. He was sick. He was really a sick kid, and so she had to do that. Now, on top of that, he's kind of on the gay side, or however you want to call it, and it's like, yeah, that, and he is that. He does think that way. He does lean in that direction. And so, if you combine those two things, I can understand why it is that he's, let's say, hesitant to stand on his own anywhere. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have to. The same kind of thing is true for George. I mean, no matter what he said, I mean, George's mom could not let his dad know what George was really saying, or what he was doing, or how gay he really was. George's dad could not have understood that at that time in his life.
Yeah.
And so George got by with frickin' murder, and I mean, he was mean to his sisters. I mean, blindfold a sister and tell her to walk down the stairs. That'd be good, huh?
Did he do that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, he's pushing the limits there.
Well, see, that's the thing, that's what George does, because he does what he wants, because he's only his body. He's not the other thing. So it's okay. I'm not mad at him about that. It's just, it's like where we are with coronavirus, Yeah, Trump is a dumb fuck or not a dumb fuck. I don't really give a damn. We've got all this virus stuff running around in the world, and we're in trouble here. So we got to do something else.
Yeah. You think?
Deal with what's now. There's plenty of time for counting the chips later. Kenny Rogers said that, right?
Yep.
Time for counting when the dealing's done.
We're not done dealing quite yet, I don't think.
No. I guess they don't know when to fold them. Keep holding them.
Well, the way to learn is to hold them in the wrong time, because you end up penniless that way, they say.
They ain't walking away, and they ain't running.
So, John, did they have you got a couple copies of Office of Shaman floating around there? Did you give one to Jesse for him to peruse while he's hanging out?
But the only ones we have are in Spanish, so
Even better.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
He can read with his finger like Carlos, right?
Yeah.
E.T. go home. Okay.
Yeah.
The thing is that there's lots of things I could talk to them about, but they argue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Well,
you have things you have to do.
well, hold on, because you left off somewhere last night with have a consider this kind of thought, which was like sound like
That's why I'm on tonight.
Hey, I'm asking. I'm asking the question. Well, you know what? How about you ask it, Ralph? You got one?
Well, it was what you're about to say. You left off yesterday. John's piqued my curiosity. Wouldn't you like to have the power? So, how did you explain that yesterday, John?
I don't. You have to just ask me whatever it is you want to know. I'll be glad to share it with you.
Yesterday, we ended with, wouldn't you like to have the power to talk to people and have like an advantage over them? Because you could understand logic, I guess.
You understand what they believe is real.
Okay.
You see,
that's what piqued my curiosity.
Yeah. You see, here's the problem. in order to understand what somebody is believing is real, you have to consider the things that they could believe is real, or you can't communicate with them. So how do you establish what they believe is real? Well, you have to ask them, of course. Now, will they lie to you? Of course they'll lie to you. But what will they lie about, and where do they lie? Oh, gracious, that tells you so much, because why you're defending, where are those walls? Why are they so weak if you've got those big asshole cannons on them? You know, all of those kinds of things, if you observe that in people all of the time, you may have a wealth of knowledge that they don't even consider having. And programming at the beginning gives you that advantage. The ability to understand where they are on what we call the playing field, oh my, that gives you more advantage than you can imagine. That's what both Ken and Paul like about this particular idea.
Yeah. I always and continue to be, but particularly when I first started coming around, pretty amazed at what John could see in terms of what people were doing. Like, just like what are they really doing? You know, it's like I've got George working for me, Ralph, and you've met him.
Yeah.
And George, I've been having conversations with George for like half a year or longer about this thing which you can call arrogance, where he knows better. You know, he grew up, you know, with a mommy, and I think a dad that patted him on the back and told him he was super wonderful, and he was the golden child. You could say he believes that. He does. Well, you know, everything he says and everything that he does is consistent with that. Now, how do you talk to a new employee who you know doesn't know the first thing about your business, which he doesn't, and try to get him to pay attention to what's going on and what needs to be done if he already knows and is damn sure he knows better? Well, we had a 3-hour conversation with him, Ralph, earlier today.
And how'd that go?
You know, it went about as well as, well, I don't want to say it went as well as it could. You know, I mean, he took an onslaught from those that participated to communicate with him to get this point across. And as John pointed out, I don't know when you got on, but we're talking about, yeah, you heard it, people putting up their walls of defense to protect something they think someone can't see, but you can see it. And so George always has that wall of defense up. He's always very level the way he speaks about things. You could tell, you know, that he just has one tone or one way of going at it. And you just know that he's protecting something. But, I mean, he took an onslaught. I mean, he took it on the chin, you'd say, Ralph. But at the end of 3 hours, you know, I don't got anything to hang my hat on other than I know it got through and he's got things to consider.
George is what, the skinny kid, dark hair that works at
Yeah.
your quantum floats. He came to the, I think, to that networking meeting that day.
Yeah. That's the one.
Can you indulge a little bit, like what it was like? Because you guys are, I guess, trying to give him a, like, not a reprogram, a rewrite, or an intro.
Well, he did his intro. He did a rewrite. He's even done other workshops. But before you got on, we were kind of reminiscing about all of us, Paul's on, and Elise, a.k.a. Cookie Lady, and Jenny's behind the scenes, and I see a guy on named Chris Olson that's listening in, and Jesse's listening in, and George is listening in, and to various degrees, everyone's been hard-headed about dealing with real shit that they're doing. So you would ask John a question about the advantage, and John said, well, if you pay attention to what people believe is real, if you just learn how to pay attention to that, that whatever they're going to do is going to be consistent with that. I told a story about that contractor guy, Ralph, who doesn't show up for meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you talk to him, he's, oh, Kenny, how you doing, Kenny? Yeah, it's like, I already know, what he's going to do. I know that, that his behavior is going to be consistent with what I'm observing in him.
Well, Ken, you're in luck because George is now online here. You could talk to him directly if you wanted to demonstrate communication.
Hey, George. Let's see. Let's turn. Now you can talk. I turn your mic on. Yeah, can you hear me, George?
Yes.
So, what was this? What was this 3-hour call about today?
Well, we had a 3-hour call today about more or less that you guys were pointing out that I was being really arrogant, and it's something that you guys have been talking to me for years about, and basically I haven't really the communication didn't happen where I really was able to see it and recognize it and change it.
Yeah, but you see it and you recognize it. I mean, I've been talking to you about this, and as long as everyone else on the call on the facilitator float center side has for quite some time.
Well, but Ken, here's the thing. I have an advantage over you in this regard. I can push him up against a worldwide pandemic.
Yeah.
Even that's not enough to actually get through, because he doesn't think that it's going to affect gay guys. He thinks it only is going to affect human people. And I still don't understand the difference, and I can't get him to talk to me about why he makes that differentiation. I'm not arguing with him about the differentiation. I just don't understand it. So can you communicate that difference to me, George?
Yeah, George, just even because that sounds just so far-fetched that...
Right. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that it almost sounded like John said that you're pretty much safe over there because you're a gay guy in first and not a human second, and since the pandemic only deals with human people, well, George is going to be pretty okay. Something like that. Is that?
Unless he's brown or black.
Unfortunately, he's not. So that's wrong, Ralph. Would you please?
Well, I tend to think that I'm different or special or something in it, and it has a lot of its roots in my sexuality. And so because of that differentness or that specialness or that gayness that's different, in my opinion, than other people, I tend to think that I'm different than most people. Like most people don't understand me. Most people don't know what I'm talking about. And so
what? You don't have to learn things, or you don't have to deal with a pandemic, or learn how a float center works,
or learn how to communicate. You have to talk about things like this so that people can understand you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I got it. I'm with.
I think that, I mean, it's like I'm in my own little world. Like John's been pointing out, like, pay attention to what's going on around you. Pay attention to what's going on around you. And it's been pointed out a number of times that I'm not paying attention to what's going on around me. So I can definitely, like, I know there's a pandemic. Like, I'm not stupid, but it's like, I think what they're getting at is that I'm in my own little world, and like something as serious as a pandemic, it's still difficult to get me to, like, really even pay attention to something as serious as that. Although, of course, I know what's going on.
Yeah, but what's it going to take? I'm of the opinion at this point now that you're fully dug into identifying yourself as a special boy. I mean, that's the nature of your communication. I'm George.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
special. I don't have to pay attention.
Yeah. It's like, for some reason in my thinking, it's like, oh, I don't have to do that because I'm me, which, like, or it comes out like, oh, I don't have to do that because gay people don't do that. Gay people don't talk that way to people. Gay people aren't that serious with people. Gay people aren't this or that. But it's not just the gay stuff. It's not just a gay excuse. It's more so the different or specialness excuse that I get stuck on.
That you get stuck on.
Do you really think you can't get the coronavirus?
No, of course not. No, I 100% think I could get the coronavirus.
So then why aren't you doing things to keep yourself safe? Like get along in John's house so that you aren't being threatened with being thrown out where the coronavirus is rampant. I don't think visible protective gay shirt is going to save you from that.
No, I don't think it will either. But
That's not how we see you acting. We always read the do instead of the say, George. You should know that by now.
yeah,
Is George are you not socially distancing? Is that what's going on?
No, he's due to get thrown out of that house because he just won't get along with people.
I'm with John right now. I'm living at John's house.
You made it down to John Worthington's house in Mexico?
Yeah.
I just saw you like 2 weeks ago.
You wait a second. It gets better, Ralph, because I'll ask it for you. Ready? Hey, George, how come you went down there?
I went down here to train for my job.
What in particular?
To resolve the things in my thinking that keep me from doing my job.
Such as? Don't be coy here.
Such as the arrogance, specialness, all that stuff we're talking about.
So you went down to deal with an issue, and what? I mean, George, how comical this sounds that you went down to deal with the very issue that you refused to resolve. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
He's not worried about that.
So what's he doing? Living with Jesse on the patio?
I wish, but no.
Not yet, right? Not yet.
No.
It's a thought, but no, he's not actually. It's not that he's not trying to get there. It's just that he can't. He's not that ballsy. Well, maybe I don't. We'll see. Maybe he is. Come on, talk to the man here, George. It's okay.
Mm,
You're not really hurt anywhere, are you?
no.
Okay. Well, then why don't you talk to the man instead of acting a fool here? I mean, or does it? You feel like that's just a necessary thing you have to do?
No, I can talk to Ralph. Yeah.
Why don't you talk to Ralph? Because I was curious about how it was that you knew Ralph the other night and you didn't talk to him. That bothered me. It still bothers me. And I wish I'd like for you to. I'd like to see that straightened out because I think Ralph's deserving of more respect than that myself.
Definitely.
Okay, then you can correct that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So Ralph, like I said, John and Ken and Paul and Elise, they've been talking to me about this for a really long time. And the thing is that they've told me it a number of times, like pointed out the arrogance, pointed out the specialness, or where I think there's value in my life where really there's not, because there's not much value to arrogance. Yet I have not changed those behaviors or those thoughts, the ways of thinking.
What do you think your roadblocks are?
I think my roadblocks are. I think it's just being honest with myself that that's how it is. Because like I've started to make sense of, okay, this is why, I pushed so many friends and family away in the past. It's because of these behaviors, or this is why I had fought with my family so often. And it's, I think it's just a matter of being brutally honest with myself about how ugly the behavior is. Because I think I lie to myself about it, and I often don't want to hear what all these folks on the call are telling me about it.
That's interesting because you know what? I've been putting some thought into some things. And it's like, maybe instead of stressing yourself in too much thought, maybe it's don't overthink it. Like, are you stuck with people? Are you worried what people are going to say about you? That, you know what I mean? Is that what's making you arrogant?
It's part. I think the main stem is just this overwhelming sense of importance where there really isn't importance, or value where there really isn't value. Me being valuable just because I arrive, or me being valuable to a business just because I'm there. Or the other part is being gay. I didn't want to be perceived as less than, like less than someone who's straight, for example. So I think that amplified the self-importance, like, oh, I'm way better than you, because I really didn't want to be perceived as the opposite.
George, it's really telling that you even consider that people think less of someone for being gay. You do realize that, right? You're opening this conversation with an assumption that's not true.
Yeah, I want to say that. I guess when you first tell somebody you're gay, it'll last about a second, and then the other person's going to go back to, fuck it, doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? I guess most people, unless you're anti, but then, there's all races have people that are against them, not just gays,
Right. Yeah.
how do you think, like, because we're talking about the tank and these memories and how to rewire.
Mhm.
How do you take that now back to like your memories of why you feel arrogant or these feelings? You know what I'm saying? I mean, gay you're born with, but these feelings, it's like, how do you trace that back now to, how old are you, George?
I'm 26.
So you're a young guy. How do you go back to the early memories and figure that out?
It gets better. What's your education, George?
I'm a psychologist.
Oh, so you're trained in this.
Formally trained and educated.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, but
I understand, John. Believe me. When George came, he wanted to set up a psychology practice. I said, "How are we going to set up a psychology practice? We're going to have arrogant psychology here."
Well, okay, to answer your question, Ralph, about the memories and the tanks and everything. So after floating, I'd say a year or two, I started having brief flashes of memory. And then over time, and it did take some time, I got more pieces of a memory. And long story short, there was a memory when I was like 5-ish, 3-ish, no, 5-ish, 4-ish, where me and my cousin, male cousin, were playing doctor, at our local swim club, and my mom, we were out doing it out in public, like on the playground, and my mom caught me and really, I think like spanked my hiney and like dragged me across the parking lot, and I was like screaming, and I thought, for one, I thought I was right in doing that, and the other thing was I thought she was telling me that it was wrong to be doing it with a guy. But it took me a little bit to realize that it wasn't about the that I was playing doctor with a guy. It was that you don't do that stuff out in public. And obviously I wasn't right. You can't do that in public. And so that type of thinking, me being right, it's been continually carried over into other thinkings from that incident, from that memory. Does that make sense?
It does. So like now, this is where my curiosity comes in.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sure that's it, then you can work on the rewrite. But how do you know that's it? Like, could that be one memory? Maybe it's more than one memory.
It could definitely. It might be more than one memory, but I mean it. I think what I would say is that like the memories, like I can't be arrogant even though I'm being arrogant. I can't be arrogant and say, oh, it's because I still haven't addressed some memories. I think like addressing the memories helps you to get to the one of the root causes, but in paying attention to what you're doing now, you're making sure you're not using types of thinking that don't work. So it's like so what I'm trying to say is that, even though there might be more arrogant memories, which I'm sure there are, I still have to pay attention to what I'm doing in the moment, and make sure that thinking is anything but arrogant.
Are you arrogant to some people and not to others?
No, I don't think it works like that. It's like it's global. It's like what we say. Well, like once a belief is written, it becomes the rule of your life until recognized and changed. And so it's the rule of your life. It's not like, oh, it's just here and there. It comes out when I'm cooking in the kitchen, which John relentlessly points out to me. It comes out in how I prepare to do things, just in life in general. It comes out in how I.
Can you give me an example? Give me an example of the kitchen thing.
Okay, like every morning I make a breakfast for everyone in the house, and you ought to think through how you're going to make the breakfast, how much people you have to feed, and so I really wasn't thinking about how many people I needed to feed one day, and I counted the people in the house, and then I added some potential clients that might come in, and then I added some other potential people that might come in for the visit. And so I started making hash browns, and it was time for breakfast to be served, more or less. And I had a mountain of uncooked hash browns just sitting on the counter. And John said something like, "What are you doing? Trying to feed like an army?" And so the arrogant thinking, not really looking at, okay, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Let's check myself to see. So I'm actually prepared for who's coming for breakfast. I rushed into it without thinking, and then wasted food.
Yeah.
George, did you ask anybody how many people were coming for breakfast?
No, I didn't ask anyone.
George, but why don't you say why is that arrogant? I don't know if that connects. I think you're missing like the connection that why is that behavior arrogant?
Yeah, it's arrogant because I did something without actually thinking it through. Like I said, "Oh, I know how many people are coming for breakfast," just like I did at the memory with my slide. I know what I should be doing on the playground, Mom. I know how many people are coming for breakfast, without actually paying attention to what's going on around me, either at the playground or in the kitchen or in the house. That's what I mean when I say arrogant.
Well, George, there's another part here, right? I mean, you didn't care if you got it wrong. You
Yeah.
didn't care if you wasted the food.
Yeah.
That's arrogant.
Yeah.
He
There's
doesn't.
go ahead.
Still to this minute doesn't care that happened. It's just a story he's telling. There's no remorse nor correction.
I
Is
mean,
that true, George?
there no there is remorse, because had I thought differently in a number of situations, the outcome would have been different, regardless if it's meals or relationships or how I'm approaching what I'm doing in my life. Like even when I went to school for psychology, it was kind of just like a snap judgment decision. I was like, okay, I'll just apply, and then I got in, and I was like, okay, I'll just go. Like there wasn't thinking that went into it, and now I'm left with a degree of psychology that doesn't really mesh with what we do here, because we don't. This is not therapy, and so it definitely bites me in the butt a lot.
What's the thing that bites you in the butt a lot?
Having to deal with the consequences of not thinking through what I'm doing.
Of course, I'm not going to say that knowing about classical clinical psychology is a problem.
No.
not understanding the rest of the material is the problem. That's where the problem is. I mean, you might be able to communicate with people very effectively and combine the philosophies and be able to translate, right, from one to another. So I don't really see the problem with you having a psychology degree. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I'm with you, Paul.
I don't see a problem.
That's not where the issue is here.
And you know, it's funny. I don't sense arrogance coming from you telling the story. I've talked to you before. I could understand a little bit of what maybe you're trying to say just from meeting you before, but I definitely don't hear it in your voice now.
Well, we had a long talk this morning, and I think I'm starting to be more aware of it now.
Yeah, I feel like it's a realness coming out in you. You know what I mean? And in a sense of, I feel like that's what, when the real us comes out, that's when we can rise up. You know, I always feel like, you know, employees, like when people come to work, or when I used to work for people a long time ago, you put up a barrier, but it's not until your real self comes out is when you could really rise in whatever you're doing. And I feel like maybe that could be something you're kind of going through. Your arrogance is something. It's your defense mechanism. You know, but if you become real, like that was the reason why I asked you, are you different with people? Like if you're talking to your mom, if you're talking to your boyfriend, you're still arrogant. Some people are arrogant to some, you know, or this way to some and not this way to others. But in others, it's a defense mechanism, you know?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a defense mechanism against thinking I don't know. I mean, that's really what it is.
That sucks. That sucks for me too. That's, you know what I mean? That's everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you grow out of it though, and I think that's what it's been time for me to grow out of it.
That's where the issue's been, George. As Ralph said, people want to know who you are, you know, I mean, and count on what you say. Not that you put, you know, to have a paint on everything you do that you've got this and that you know better. And this is a conversation you and I have had since you set foot in the float center. About you sitting down there at the desk the first day, and everything was painted with I'm here and I know better, and you are so lucky to have me.
Yeah.
And
I thought I could run Ken's business better than he did, like a week or two into the job.
And you told me that.
I told, yep.
Make it the new measurement. You know what I'm saying? Don't make it you can run it better than Ken. Make it to where higher gross, more profit. You know, that's successful business. That should be your goal, not I'm doing better than Ken.
Yep.
Exactly. It shouldn't be, because that's kind of where I get stuck, is like, oh, I'm gonna be better, I'm gonna be best, I'm gonna be right, and it's not. It's like dichotometric, you know.
What is it that Ralph just mentioned?
That you have to bring in, like, instead of being better, like you be better in terms of the money that you're bringing in, like the gross profit, the money that comes in.
Yeah, I wonder how that works.
Ralph, could you say more about that?
Well, okay, so like, all right, my job. All right, let me say like a simple story. I'm a chef. Chef is my background. That's how I started. But as my business grows, I had to change my position. But you know, it's taken me time to realize this. So once upon a time, I wanted to say that I was the best. I'm better than anybody. I'm hiring for people to take the chef job, and I'm thinking you can't do a better job than me. So in some way, maybe I didn't sound arrogant, but I was definitely confident, and I knew I was arrogant. And it took me time to realize that it's better I surround myself with people better than me, because if I'm not worried about being better than them, then I can actually learn what the hell's going on. For me, it was learn how to make money in a business. I mean, you know, these are not feelings, these are business or whatever, you know? But in your situation, I feel like coming to work with Ken, the measurement that should be taken is not, am I better than my other employees? Great. You're the best at the table. Ken is trying to surround himself with better people. It's where can you take the recipe? You know, is the recipe great to where, look, clients coming in, hand over fist, you can't handle anymore. You know what I mean? Booming numbers. I mean, these are things that business want, financial, you know? And that should be the measurement you line yourself up against. Not, hey, I'm doing better than this or that, or I'm working hard. It's like, you know, what are we doing here? Oh, you know, we doubled sales this year. That's a pat on the back.
Yeah, that's where the measure is.
And I also, again, in my experience, I've noticed, you know, George, because as you continue to grow, as you think you get better, you actually don't get the pats on your back anymore. You got to start giving the pats on your back. So you got to recognize people that are doing a good job, not be arrogant, and, you know, give it where it's due. You're doing a good job. You are better than me. I could have never have done that. And I think when you can let that go, man, I'll tell you, then you can really do anything, because I feel like you're free. You know what I mean? You're not holding up this barrier, at least in work.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that even could be translated outside of work. You know, like, what are you doing in your relationships? You know, relationships aren't about being better. Relationships are about, you know, what are you doing in the relationship? I mean, I don't have much experience in that, but I think there's a lot of value to what you're saying. That's actually what we were talking about this morning, about, you know, like you say you're better, but where is the proof of that in terms of money coming into the business? Like, sure, show me that, but show me that in terms of dollars that's coming into the business.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we have here, Ralph, is an issue of communication, because George has taken an onslaught of people. A 3-hour call today is just a tip of what's been going on since he first expressed a desire to come to Quantum. And this thing that you're talking to him about, Ralph, has been a long conversation, although you're delivering it right down the fucking middle. So, you know, hopefully he's going to hear it from a business guy. You know, it's like, you know, ball in his court. You know, he's, you know, people are looking for him to make a move and actually digest this communication, make an adjustment of where he's at so he can have some value to the business. I'm with you. You know, he probably has some talents. I assume people do. But to get those out, you know, who are you really? You know, who are you? You know, are you pretending to be something that you're not, which you do, George? Everybody can see that.
I can assure you that George has value.
Yeah,
That's not the problem. Not for me. The problem for me is not about his value. The problem for me is in another place entirely. The problem for me resides in where it is that he refuses to acknowledge that he has value from one day to the next, where he's looking for, well, maybe I can better my position rather than standing on what he already is or what he's learned. I mean, what's wrong with that? Why is it he can't stand on that? That's the question I keep asking, Ken.
How? Because what you see is that he wants to better his position from day in, and instead of.
Yeah, well, that's what it looks like. Okay, it looks like what he's trying to do is he's trying to find a better position from which to I don't know, to deal or something. If you could say, if I can say it that way, and it's like, what's wrong with the one you've already got? There's nothing. I mean, it works just fine if you use it, dude. You know what are you trying? What are you screwing around with? That's my
Good.
2 cents right there.
George, does that make sense to you?
Yeah. How I'm thinking about what John just said is that, if I'm lying to myself about what I know, I'm not going to get anywhere. But if I'm just honest with myself about, like, for example, in the kitchen, because I was put with the tasks of managing the kitchen here. If I pay attention to, okay, I know how to make these dishes and I can make these dishes well. And then once I get those done, move on to the next thing. Starting with what I know, what I'm, where I actually have experience in. I think that's what John's saying. That's where the value is.
Yeah.
Could I expand a little bit? And also in like communication? All right, you're going to guess how much kitchen stuff there is, but isn't it easier to ask John, hey, John, you know what? There's 13 people here. How many hash browns you fucking make for 13 people usually? He knows. Nobody eats potatoes. Make 6 potatoes. That's it. So you get your communication, whereas instead of like, oh, I know everything. Let me just take a guess at everything and then fuck some stuff up.
Ralph, let me tie in for you some B1 stuff that we've been talking about here, because the task, the task is to make potatoes for people, right? That'd be the do. We just had the that triangle here, and so I think what John was talking about before, that I'm often in Fantasyland as to what I think I know, like, oh, I can make a lobster, like, 5-course meal for these people. That's what I kind of started off with. I was like, oh, I'm a gourmet chef, is what I told John. Definitely not. But the issue is, in doing what I want to do, I get stuck with thinking I'm something that I'm not, and so I'm not one, right? I think I'm this thing over here, or like a great chef, or a great psychologist, or a great float tank facilitator, when really I'm none of those things. So that B1 is not stable.
That's not true either. All right, rewind a second, because look at it from my standpoint. I'm just a regular guy, Ken's friend that came in. I met you, and I didn't get any of. Maybe listen, a little arrogant, but I didn't get like, you suck. Actually, I thought you were a very talented guy, because, like I was telling Ken about your counterpart Bridget, like, you guys don't seem like, all you're not like you go to the massage place, the cashier, like, the counter person, like that's like a person, I think, real low on the pole. And that's what I was figuring were Ken and the counter people. But I know there's something different about you, Bridget, and obviously Ken, only because of, again, how you're talking and listening to you explain. I mean, granted, you're trying to explain yourself, but if you're trying to explain to somebody else, for me, you sound like a pro. So it's not like you're doing a bad job. I just think you got to be real and truthful with yourself about shit you don't know, because it does stem in everything. I mean, you're talking about cooking, and that's going into other things. Because I think there's always a day in everybody's life, and I mean, I don't know. I think we talked about this a little bit the other day. You got to look into a mirror, and whatever's reflecting back in you, that's what you got, man. That's you. You got to accept it. And then you go. Because if you don't look across and say, you know what, I'm good with that. Everybody wants to be taller, skinnier, better abs, bigger, better, more money. But that's everybody. That's our human nature. But you do have to start out with whatever that guy in the mirror is. That's you. Whether you're, whatever it is, and then improve from there. Skinny people want to bulk up, they lift weights. Fat people want to lose weight, you know what I mean? They go on a diet. I know the mind is the same thing. That's why I'm so intrigued in all this.
Yeah, I mean, you got to start with where you are and being honest. And I have to be honest with myself about what I like. Looking at Ken and Elise, or John, I'm like, ooh, like, I want to be like that. But I have to start with where I'm at, and unless I start with where I'm at, I can't get to where I want to go.
Yeah. Go ahead, Elise.
My problem is you talk a good game. And I think you're trying to con Ralph here. Because there's a big gap between what you say or think you can do and what you do. There's a chasm there. And I like Ralph. I don't like you conning him. You're talking a good game to him when it's not there. You're acting as if you know something you don't know.
You know, Elise, it's funny that you brought that up because I was thinking how one of the challenges George seems to have is he's not willing to make the determination between what he knows and what he doesn't. And that's a skill set that you really can't advance past without really understanding. There's a very big difference, and you just pointed out the gap between what you actually know and why you know it and how you know that you know it versus everything else. And I think George is not making a lot of progress in that place.
Yep. I agree, Paul. Yep.
Ralph's a nice guy. He's giving you the benefit of the doubt. He's asking you questions to say, hey, you know, how are you going to be yourself? You can't be me. You can't be him. You can't be any of us. You can only be you. And that's where you do your best job. Ralph's giving you a hand there.
Yeah, and it's what you guys were saying again this morning too, is like I can't be anything other than what I am. And I have to be happy with who I am and what I am.
Right. So what? Like your motivation down there, you want to be teaching classes, but instead you're stuck in the kitchen.
Hold on just a second, Ralph. George, can you say that again?
Yeah, I said that I have to be happy with who I am and be honest with myself about who I am and be happy about it.
Okay. Does that mean that you're usually not happy with who you are, or I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Right.
Okay, well, I didn't understand how you got to there.
Because well, I think where I'm at in terms of like knowing, well, literally like everything, or a lot of stuff that I just am. Like I'm Arabic and I'm gay and I'm a psychologist that doesn't really know a lot about the mind, and it's like I'm not happy with most of those things, really. Like I was embarrassed about my nationality.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So probably the best way to deal with that is to what, be rebellious, or what do you think? I mean, that's your go-to form of dealing with things of this nature. Is that what you're saying? What?
I think the best. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm just.
I think the best way to deal with it would be to express it so that I can get over it.
The it again. I'm not sure that I understand the it.
Like gay and Palestinian and the expressing where I don't know stuff, like kind of getting into the places that I don't like so I can get over not liking those things.
Yeah, but the thing is that you're a drama queen with it sometimes, right?
Could you say that again?
You're a drama queen with that mostly, right? You don't. In other words, whenever I bring it up, I say, okay, George, I need to talk to you about this thing. Then it's like I got to fight through all the drama because you're going to dish at me because you're that's what you're going to do. for whatever reason. I'm not trying to tell you you're a bad boy. I just said that you do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I get super dramatic. You've pointed that out. Yeah.
You do, and you do it well. I got to. You're really super at it. There's no doubt. Okay, now here's my question though. It's like, why do you do that?
I think it's because like it's somehow related to being gay. It's like I think gay people are dramatic, and unconsciously I start being super dramatic.
Are you like Rody was saying the other day that you're super sensitive?
I think that'd be pretty accurate. Me and Rody have a lot in common. Yeah, I'd say I'm sensitive, yes.
Okay, slow down. Can you explain to me what sensitive means?
That that the littlest thing that someone will say like could.
You'll get all butthurt, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. See, I don't think of that as sensitive. I think of that as indulgent. Because back home on the farm, if you had a sensitive cow when she did stuff like that, you understood that she was indulgent. Have I ever told you about Nancy?
No, I don't think so.
Well, you should know about Nancy. You and Nancy have an awful lot in common, in a way. Nancy was the cow that we had that had particularly acute sense of smell, and she could smell where Pud Fairman's bull was every time she came in heat once a month or once a year, or depending on whether she had been out there recently to visit. And so the thing is that whenever she got in heat, she was going to go out there to see Pud's bull, like that. And the only way you could bring her back was to tie a rope around her horns and take a tractor and hook her horns and the tractor up with a rope between her horns and the tractor and drag her back to the barn, because she'd put her feet out and skid there until she didn't have enough hooves to be able to handle it anymore before she'd start to walk back.
Yeah.
Well, I learned that it didn't really make any difference whether she wanted to come or not. If you hooked the tractor up and you put it in gear, she was coming. Now, the thing is this, George, is that whenever I've encountered those kinds of encouragements in my life, personally, I say, I don't need to be a Nancy right here. I don't need a rope around my horns. I can pull those fuckers in and go and see what it is I need to find out. But then maybe it's because I got a set of balls. I don't know if that's it or not. What do you think it is?
I think it's just paying attention to what needs to be done, and that you don't have to be indulgent in that way.
Why would you be indulgent? Because you're afraid of something, you think?
Yeah, that's my question too.
Yeah.
Why would you?
Yeah, I think I like Nancy, I put my feet down and get indulgent in that way of getting all dramatic, because like I don't want to see the things that.
Okay, George. I'm not trying to get you to suffer through this. Okay, really. I just can we forego that right now? Then just
Yes.
That'd be nice.
Forego that.
Yeah.
No, I think it's just there's resistance to what you're pointing out to me. I don't know. It's like I don't want to hear the things you guys are telling me.
Okay, well then I'll tell you what. Don't listen. There we go. Now we have it solved, right?
That's one way.
We have it solved now, George, right? We do, don't we?
I mean,
You don't have to listen. There. It's a done deal now, right? Is that okay? You feel better now that you don't have to listen. I don't care.
no, I mean it's
No. Please don't listen. I don't want you. I don't want you being scared or anything. Okay, please.
well. I think that that regardless, I need to or ought to or should listen because that's what the reality is, and I'm not paying attention to the reality.
Okay, dude, it's fine. I don't mind if you pay attention to reality or don't pay attention to reality. It's okay with me. I don't mind. If you want to pay attention to reality, you can. If you don't want to, then fuck it. Don't do it, dude. It's easy. So, are we good now?
Mm.
Gotta be good, George. Fuck it, man. Bro, if you're in the military, they would fucking beat you. Beat the sensitive out of you.
Yes.
This is life.
Yeah, it doesn't serve me to be this sensitive.
And you can't just you can't dwell on it either. Like, you sound like you're fucking dying right now. Just fuck it. It's over. It didn't kill you. Move on. You gotta live life looking in the fucking forward. You can't live life looking in the rearview mirror. You can't drive that way, at least. How can you do life that way?
No, I can't do life that way.
Move on, man. You gotta accept what these guys are telling you and move on. Tomorrow, grow again. Think about why, I don't know, what everything they're saying, and it'll change tomorrow a little bit more. But
Guaranteed.
don't be
Okay.
sensitive about it. Don't dwell on it. It's over.
Yeah, just move forward, learn from it, and then, live the next day.
That's it, man. Accept task at hand. You're there to be a chef. Try to dominate that as best you can. Really put in the time. And then if you have outside time, that's where you should be asking John or trying to do whatever it is outside of that you're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I've been focusing on. Focus on the kitchen. Yeah. So, thanks, Ralph. I appreciate it.
Hey, I have a tremendous amount of respect hearing your story here tonight. So I hope you're not embarrassed. I feel like through your words, I'm learning something else about me, myself, this thing, the mind, and we're using you as the example, but it does help me and I'm sure everybody with their stuff,
Yeah. I'm really happy about that. Because why not learn from other people's experience instead of everyone having to make the same mistakes? You can learn from someone else's mistakes and go faster through those times.
Iron sharpens iron. So, you know what I mean? If you need a little sharpness, look, you got Ken and John that are fucking sharp blades,
Oh,
All
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
All right, Ken, you tell me it's that time. I'll keep talking.
Okay. That's great, Ralph. No, much appreciated. How about we, if there's nothing else, we'll call it a wrap for the night and come back on Monday.
Nice. Happy holiday. Have a good night, guys.
Yeah. Listen, it's nice for you to visit with you in the evenings. I must admit, and I really do appreciate your line of reasoning and questions.
Thank you.
I got to tell you a quick story here, just to encourage you. I hope. When I first met Eugene Albright, it was